Hello, what's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and for today's video we'll be looking at the Grand Mafia, and I will be showing you how to raid as a raid leader, or if you want to try out raiding, this would be a good tip for you. And I will split this into 3 different sections. Of course, before that I'll do some introduction about raiding. First one is the pre-raid setup, second is during the raid, and third is before the raid hits, probably like about 10 seconds or 5 seconds before your raid sets off. And yes, so before I begin, raiding is really quite tiring, and there are really quite a few setups that you have to do in order to perform raids a lot better. And this is the pre-raid setup, the introduction. What I would recommend you to have is to have a boss which is executed in your interrogation room. So how this will look like is that you would be able to obtain these respective buffs, and this will be valid for a day when you execute an underboss. And the good thing about this is that regardless of the underboss level, you will be obtaining the same buffs. However, if you're looking at the hostage cell, the underboss level would matter, and it is best to imprison a level 60 underboss instead of the respective underboss level. So there are a couple of things you need to take note of before having a hostage cell or a boss in prison. Firstly is that if you're in a Governor's War, if you have a hostage or in prison UB, your mansion can be raided, and make sure that you have anti-recon on and stuff like that to prepare for the raid. And usually only if you are a very strong raid leader you would have this imprisoned underboss. Usually for most cases I would just recommend you to have executed underboss, and that will be sufficient to add at least a maximum of 48% crew attack if you have the interrogation room to a 10 star. So once that is done, now we'll be moving on to the pre-raid setup. And this pre-raid setup would be very different if you have VIP 19 versus VIP 19 and below. Because for VIP 19, for me it's VIP 18, so VIP 19 you unlock super preset, and what this does is that you can have this super preset and you can put whichever equipment, specialties, formation, etc. that you want in this super preset. So if you got VIP 90 and above, this raid configuration and change should be so much more simpler. But if you are VIP 18, I would tell you the difference and what you would do during the raid and stuff like that. So pre-raid setup, what I'll recommend you to have is 2 main things to look out for. First, make sure that if you have collision raid size buffs, make sure to have this raid size buff on. Just have a treasure setup and have like a raid size setup ready, so you apply this before starting the raid, and you will gain the relevant amount of increase in raid size based on how many collision seal attributes you have. And of course the best will be up to 8, which will give you 100k more in your raid size. Secondly, make sure that your crew size buff is on. When you got a crew size buff on, your raid size will increase because you're able to send more to attack, and this would be greatly beneficial. Even at least 100k difference is really a big difference. So these are the 2 main pre-raid things that you have to do. And mention enraged. So essentially getting enraged, this would be the third thing if you think that you forget during the raid, because if you are defending you won't have enraged on. And also do take note that if you're enraged and if it's like Governor's War MD, you will not be able to bubble up, so you have to make sure that you are able to take all raids in the moment that you're enraged, which is usually 15 minutes. Don't forget to hit your anti-recon, because if your mansion is able to be seen by the enemy, they are able to see what raid you are using, and they are able to counter it much more easily, and you don't really want that to happen. Also, to make sure that when you set like your configured crew to attack, I got a few like configured crew, but make sure all your underboss is correctly configured. Super weapons, helicopter, and your cars, make sure that they are all correct. even before you set the rate. That is something that I missed out, yes, but this should already be done even before you set your rate anyway, maybe a long time. Alright, so now that the pre-rate setup is complete, what you need to do during the raid, about the 5 minutes raid, you have about 4 minutes to 4.5 minutes to prepare and to make sure that you have the best setup. And once again, if you have a VIP 19 and above super preset, very similar to your freight truck setup where you just click whatever that is here, the whole thing will be set for you and you are ready to go. But if you have not have VIP 19, you only have VIP 18 and below, you have to go individually to your equipment setup. Make sure to have labeled whatever equipment setup you have. For example, bruiser, you want to raid with a bruiser, have it bruiser raid and have all of your equipment, jewels, etc. set to the best bruiser attack, defense, HP. Next, of course, specialties, underboss and Governor's War specialties. Make sure that you are set to whatever thing that you're raiding. If it's a pure biker, set it to a pure biker, and for GW specialties, make sure to set it to a pure biker as well, so like everything is biker buffs. And lastly, do not forget to switch your collision from maybe like a pure raid size to your main attacking collision, seals and like treasures, so that you get the best buffs. The raid size buff, for example, for this, it would apply when you set the rate, and if you were to switch it to another of your like collision, you will not lose your extra rate size. So that is a very good thing to note. So make sure to change collision, your equipment, your specialties, everything to whichever thing that you are set with. Even before your raid moves to attack, make sure that if you need an anchor, which is somebody that will hold your raid back before you attack, so that you can time your attack properly, make sure an anchor is in. Make sure to have like raid join bonus, make sure your raid is full. There are just some things to take note before your raid is in the best condition. And if you have an extra account inside the same faction, you can join it to help you with your radar. 2 devices, one your main accounts raid, and second one is probably your farm accounts, is mainly to check your radar on what your enemy is coming with. This is only applicable for defense. Now that I've explained everything, what you have to do before your raid hits, probably like a 5 seconds, 3 seconds. Number one is of course when raid moves off, make sure to have raid speed ups if you are attacking with a single troop. This would ensure that your enemy doesn't have a lot of time to change formation or etc. But if you are defending, it is a little bit more complicated because you have to make sure that when you check your radar, you can switch quickly according to what is sent to you. For example, you're occupying an enemy's faction tower and you have a mixed formation. If your enemy attacks you in a full bruiser raid, your formation should be a biker square, because this will move your bikers in front and the enemy's bruiser have to attack the bikers first. So that is essentially the logic. It's the same if full hitman, make sure to set a full bruiser square, and full biker, make sure to set a hitman square. And before your raid also moves off, or before the enemy attacks you, make sure that you change to have crew attack buff. So you can click on this crew attack buff, you can choose 20%, 50% or 70% crew attack, etc. Especially if you got anti-recon on, you have to sort of like enable a crew attack, and this makes you vulnerable to getting a mention recon. But if they are not fast enough, you can activate crew attack. When your raid lands, you quickly reactivate your anti-recon. Of course, this will waste quite a bit of items for you, but this is the reality for raid leaders. So you have to make sure that you get your crew attack buffs on before the raid hits. Or if you have a 20% crew attack and it lasts for hours, then just make sure that your crew attack here has the buff before you hit. This would really give you some advantage. And yes, this is pretty much how you set your raid. Things to do before you set raid, things to do during your raid countdown, and things to do before the raid hits or before you get hit by a raid. Alright, so I've decided to give a live demonstration on how I raid. And firstly, and before I raid, I'll activate my crew size. Now crew size is done, I'll make sure that I have my collision raid size on so that I can gain additional raid size. And also make sure that you have like a executed boss, so this will help. And if you want, you could have a hostage cell, and once again the level of the underboss that is inside the cell matters and will give you more buffs if it's at max level 60. Now most of it is done. For example, if your formations are set to whichever you would like, you are ready to raid. And what I usually do is I will have 5 minutes and I have a presetting for my mixed raid. And if your everything is done, you can start the raid, but I want to attack straight, so I will just set to my whichever configured setting and I will just send straight to the tower. Remember, if you send straight to the tower, let your faction members know so that they will be able to feel quickly. If not, they might solo the tower and you might lose. So this is a riskier move to make. Yeah, so make sure I just set all my combat things properly. And yeah, that's pretty much how you set a raid. Doing the raid itself, let's say this is I've landed, and during the raid itself I would go back, change to whichever I think is my strongest collision, just wait for the raid, and before the raid hits, if you use a 50% crew attack, you should activate it before the raid lands, because the 50% crew attack only lasts 5 minutes. So if you activate too early, when the raid is 5 minutes long, while waiting for the raid, your crew attack buff will be gone. But if you use a 20% crew attack buff, which lasts for a few hours, it is fine to use it in advance. And when you see the enemy attack you with whichever attack formation, make sure to, if you have VIP 19 as mentioned, got super presets, and you would set your raid to defend against the enemy's raid in this case. Or if you have VIP 18 and below, the most or the best thing that you could do is head to your formation page and switch to whichever formation is the best based on what your enemy is sending for single troop raids. But if it's a mixed raid, Hitman Squad is usually the best to take the raid. Alright, we got a live demonstration, so hopefully he'll land a hit and we'll see what I do. Sadly, because I don't really have a additional account helping with radar, it is harder for me to switch my formations in time, or if you're VIP 19 above, switch your presets in time. And I just have to count on lag and some form of luck when I see his raid information and quickly change to whichever I think he's coming with. Yeah, so this is more of a defending method and it is a lot harder than attacking. For attacking, you don't have to worry about formation because everything has been set. What you only need to remember is to pop your crew attack if you want to use a 50% crew attack. But because today is not an MD day and I don't have a hostage inside, they cannot recon me, so I can pop my crew attack at any point because I definitely think that they will be landing a hit. Usually I'll still wait to the last few seconds to see what would happen. Of course before the raid comes, because I have to check what he is bringing in. Yeah, about 10 seconds setting the raid, I'll hit my 50% buff and let us see what he's coming. And if he comes at bikers, I would stay. If he's a bruiser, I will change to biker square. Shit, this is a little bit late. Hopefully I change it. That's quite a slow change. Yeah, it's a slow change. Yeah, so this is basically what makes defending harder. You have to see what enemy is coming and change your formation or your preset accordingly. And if you find this video useful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys again real soon for my next video.